Would you walk into an abandoned shrine at midnight with a group of strangers? If you read this chapter and still sleep with your lights off, consider yourself luckier than them, but don't get cocky. Chapter 7, The Woman in the Pillar. The image in the dark wasn't clear, but it was horrific enough that everyone's attention was dragged to it, breaths held as if the world itself had gone fragile. The relief carving on the pillar began to twist, as though invisible hands were kneading it. Lines that had been frozen in stone trembled and warped, then, like something desperate trying to claw free, the pattern split. In a moment, a pale hand forced itself crude and unnatural out of the carving, long, knobby fingers curled with crimson nails, probing the empty air before latching onto the nearby wooden railing. The knuckles creaked, the sound sharp as old wood complaining. Once it found purchase, the hand used it. Slow, relentless, and with a horrible deliberateness, it began to pull. Flesh and ornamentation tore apart like tightly stretched fabric. The thing worked itself inch by inch out of the pillar, shoulders, ribs, a head that shouldn't fit inside stone. The sight was grotesque and arresting, everyone watching felt their breath catch as if a chill had reached their lungs. Stop watching. Run. Ruan Baijia's shout cut through the paralysis like a blade. It yanked the crowd back from the cliff of terror. Lin Qiushi snapped awake as if surfacing, and when he looked back the thing had already half escaped from the pillar. Run! Ruan Baijia bellowed again, urgency carved into every syllable. They scattered. Lin Qiushi didn't waste thought, he ran toward the lodging with everything he had. Noise rose behind them, not footsteps, but a dragging, scraping sound that combed the snow. Whatever had come from the pillar was following. Lin heard it moving through the snow, a wet, tearing crawl. He knew he shouldn't look back, but he did. That glance nearly undid him. The thing had come free, a woman-shaped figure, naked, hair like a black veil, massive beyond human proportions. Her limbs were too long, jointed and sliding across the ground with an insectal, wrong motion. Her face was hidden in shadow, but the worst detail was unmistakable, a long-handled axe in her grip, its blade smeared with a dark, glistening liquid. Fuck! Lin swore aloud. He'd chalked earlier oddities up to hallucination, but this was no trick, it was too clear, too solid. The sense of being pulled into another, harsher reality tightened around him. Anyone who looked back had the same white-faced shock. Survival instinct quickened their pace, but the snowy dirt path was slick and narrow, speed wouldn't buy space. In seconds the thing closed the gap. Keck. Xiaoku's foot missed and she fell hard into the snow, terror turning her limbs useless. Xiong, help. Most would have left her, thinking only of themselves. But to everyone's surprise, Xiong Qi stopped. He bit down, spun back, and hauled her free. Move, he growled. Tears streaked down Xiaoku's face. She started to thank him, then the shadow fell over them. The axe-wielding woman loomed, towering and composed, smiling with a mouth too wide, teeth cramped and wrong. She raised the rusted blade and brought it down. No. Xiaoku's scream tore the cold air. She clutched Xiong Qi, eyes squeezed shut. Xiong Qi bit his lip and shut his eyes, as if surrendering. The blade came down, then struck a faint, golden sheen that had risen around both of them. The axe rang on the light, a clean metallic clang that sliced through the night like a bell, and the woman made an irritated, animalistic noise. To everyone's shock, she left them and moved on. Xiaoku and Xiong Qi lay in the snow, saved by a flicker of something none of them could name. Xiong, what was that? Xiaoku's voice trembled. Xiong Qi stared the way the woman had gone, voice low and raw. You remember the Buddha statue we bowed to when we first went into the shrine? She nodded. Maybe it saved us, he said. A horrible understanding dawned on Xiaoku, those who went into the shrine alone had not seen that benevolent image, they'd seen the axe woman instead. Then we're done for, Qiushi said with a humorless smile. Lin and Ruan ran until the same thing happened to them. But in the moment of danger it was Ruan Baijie who held Lin close, steady and unervingly calm. She kissed the top of his head and murmured, "Baby, don't be afraid." Her voice was a small, fierce anchor amid the chaos. Lin wanted to push her away to fight, but she clung to him tight. He watched the axe fall toward them, and it, too, struck that gold light and clanged harmlessly away. Ruan laughed softly, oddly amused. The woman spun and bounded toward someone else. That person, only half aware, glanced over and saw Lin and Ruan shining with that light, then she appeared at his side. He started to ask, Are we saved? This light, and then the sound of flesh being split, wet and final. The axe cleaved him in two. Even in death, his face held disbelief, as if he couldn't reconcile how different outcomes existed for people who had observed the same events. Lin sat on the snow, watching blood stain the white ground. The woman's laugh, a cackling, low sound, followed her as she went, dragging the rest like hunted game. He pressed his lips together to stop bile rising in his throat. "It's over," Ruan said, patting his back. Her voice was deceptively steady. "It's done." "Is it because of how many people went into the shrine?" Lin asked, voice hollow. Ruan said nothing. "The ones who went alone, they're gone, right?" he pressed. Ruan's silence was the only answer. Who could explain such arbitrary rules? The world they'd stepped into obeyed a cruel, ancient logic they couldn't parse. An hour later, when everyone gathered back at the lodging, the number of survivors had dwindled. As Lin suspected, the people who'd entered the shrine by themselves did not come back alive. The axe woman had taken them, and brought their bodies back. She'd cut them in half, smiling, dragging the halves into the darkness of the temple. She took the bodies back, someone whispered. She chopped them in two and carried them into the shrine, laughing. "Did that carpenter lie to us?" Xiaoku asked in a cracked voice. "If we did what he said, wouldn't we all die?" Qiushi shook his head wearily. "Not necessarily all at once. Usually something like half survive. It's never total." "Half surviving doesn't help," Ruan said, reclining and shelling sunflower seeds with a strange elegance. Even this casual motion looked graceful, almost careless. "Even if she kills one a day, it's a nightmare." Silence settled across the group, heavy and resigned. Someone suggested, "We already bowed at the shrine. Shouldn't we prepare coffins?" Qiushi agreed. "We'll go ask that carpenter tomorrow. But I have a feeling there's more to this." There always was more. Filling a well in the real world is simple, here, in that other place, it might cost a life. Who could say what would leak out when they disturbed the ground? These were questions for tomorrow. For now, they were all exhausted, tired enough to sleep from the sheer force of fear. At least tonight, they had one small mercy: no one was going to die before sunrise. Lin lay awake and watched Ruan slide into the bed beside him. "Thanks for today," he said quietly. "You were amazing. I ran out of steam." Ruan's voice softened. "A man can't be weak. Not now." Lin rolled his eyes. "Yeah, sure." Ruan turned toward him, smile warm despite everything. "If you make it out alive, what's the first thing you'll do?" Lin thought of home, of a life that felt impossibly far. "Go home and get married," he said. The answer felt like a childish wish, more like a lifeline than a plan. "You got a girlfriend?" Ruan asked. Lin laughed. "I'm a designer who lives on overtime. Where would I find time for that?" Ruan laughed too. Dreams matter. When we get out, I'll buy you a girlfriend on Amazon. Thanks, you're a real pal, Lin said, half embarrassed. No problem, brother, she said. They spoke a little longer until sleep took them both. Lin didn't dream. Sleep there was like temporary amnesia, a short reprieve from the cruel reality pressing on them. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Sunlight struck the snow in a harsh, indifferent glare, as if to wash everything clean. But they all knew better. Light could not banish what had already been summoned into the dark corners of the world. Shadows lingered, patient and hungry. To be continued.